when readers flip through the opinion pages of newspapers, they expect to encounter a variety of viewpoints about today's trending topics. That's why it's called the editorial section, after all. But have you ever wondered how the writers formulate his or her opinions and the motivations behind it all? It turns out that some of those writers were actually paid by the Malaysian government to write a critical piece of opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. BuzzFeed discovered that from May 2008 until April 2011, conservative writer Joshua Trevino was paid nearly $390,000 to focus on politics of Malaysia, a sum he used to subcontract to 10 other writers to write in columns in publications from The Guardian to The Washington Examiner and beyond. You can see some of those titles there. Now, to break down this case, I'm joined by Michael Brooks. He's a producer for The Majority Report. Hey there, Michael. So this seems like a cut and dry case of a conflict of interest, but Trevino defends himself by saying he's not a journalist. So is that an applicable defense here?
Hi, Megan. It's great to be talking with you. You know, that would probably come as news to many people who've read his columns and his blog posts. He wasn't identified explicitly as representing the Malaysian government. So obviously implicitly, or not implicitly, very directly, you would think that he was offering objective analysis. And it's as simple as that. I don't really think there's much nuance here. He was dishonest in his dealings, in his representation.
Okay, what about the other writers or media outlets that publish them? Should they be held equally responsible as he is being?
Well, I think, you know, the other writers, you know, they have this notion of being sort of subcontracted or whatever. Maybe there's a little bit of murkiness, but essentially, yes. I mean, look, this is a PR and communications operation that was posing as objective journalism. I think the only kind of clear tip-off would be, why would anybody be interested in publishing, or why would these guys even want to be writing about Malaysia? I mean, certainly Trevino was no expert in the region and didn't really have any credibility or value added on the issue. I think for the outlets that publish them, it's embarrassing, obviously, and they should check their procedures and look at their processes. I don't think they should be accountable on the same level, but it's an embarrassment.
Okay, do you think if he and the other writers would have disclosed the fact that they had some sort of relationship with the Malaysian government, would that have made it okay? Or are we entering an age in journalism where more often journalists are part of the stories themselves? Should we just accept that?
Well, there's a lot, you know, kind of tied up in that question. It's a really good question. I think that part of the problem is, though, is contained in the question with these guys, because no one would have any interest in what they had to say about Malaysia if essentially some kind of, you know, conservative bloggers, pundits, journalists just came out and said, hey, look, you know, this article is part of my contract work for the Malaysian government. I don't think most people would have any interest in reading that. You know, the proposition is that there's some type of dispassionate analysis here, and this is why you should be interested in what I have to say about Malaysia. So if they were identifying themselves as such, they wouldn't be performing their function anyways. And I think that that's a critical distinction, because this isn't just a piece of PR. This is a very particular type of PR. This is kind of astroturfing, false representation of information that's supposed to come from objective arbiters, but really comes from a skewed source, which in this case is the Malaysian government, as money funneled through communications firms which hired these guys. So if they were identifying themselves, they wouldn't have been hired to do what they were doing. So intrinsic to what they were doing was the misrepresentation.
Michael, does it matter? Does it matter if it was appeared on the editorial pages or on the newspaper? Does it make really any difference?
Again, I think that in these guys' cases, it would make some difference because of how they're identifying themselves and how they're broadcasting themselves. I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody saying, hey, look, I work for the Malaysian government, or anybody else for that matter, and I'm making the case for them. But when you come out and your role is to be some type of analyst, and you're not identifying who you're working for, what you're representing, I mean, it just seems, you know, again, it seems almost simplistic, because it is pretty simplistic. it's a problem and it's a misrepresentation.
So what does this say about the state of fact-checking today, especially the fact that writers themselves, should the media outlets trust the writers, or do they need to follow up, especially when it comes to these freelancers?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there does need to be a bit more kind of follow-up. I think, again, specifically in these cases, I don't know why anybody would be interested in what Josh Trevino had to say about Anwar Ibrahim or Malaysia. I mean, frankly, the only other sort of public distinction that this guy has is calling for a foreign government to kill U.S. citizens. When he recommended that the Israeli government kill American citizens on a Gaza flotilla a couple years ago. I mean, he's kind of a low balls propagandist, not particularly interesting writer with not much to say. So I think it's a tip-off as to, why is this guy writing about Malaysia? What's his interest here, and what's the relevance of what he might have to say? But obviously the process in general should be tightened up, because there are a lot of interested parties out there and a lot of different ways of getting information out.
And if nothing else, it should remind viewers and readers to always check what they're being told before they just believe it. Michael Brooks, producer of The Majority Report, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.